Welcome, welcome, welcome to the How to Adult with Travis Walker podcast. Today we're talking about a subject that I really care about. It is called financial independence. If you've never heard about financial independence, you're going to learn a lot today, but there is so much more information out there. So after you listen to this podcast, you've got to go out and consume more content if you're serious about it. I brought on the leader of Average Joe Finance. His name is Mike. He has so much information to give in the world of financial independence, real estate investment, and we just learned so much of how to approach money and how to approach financial independence. So you're going to want to listen to all of this. It's such good content. I'm really excited to put it out. All right. So if you are interested in being a sponsor for the podcast, you need to reach out to me because I would love to partner with businesses that believe in me and believe in my podcast. It's going to be an incredible journey as we continue to grow this podcast. It's also going to be an amazing journey to watch all of us learn how to adult. And so we need to get into the episode and learn how to adult together. All right, Mike, the man behind Average Joe Finance. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Travis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'd like to start all my shows off just by asking a few questions so that we can, get to know you, get some credibility and everything. So I'm just going to ask a couple of today, but I'm interested in what your location is and what you do for work.
Sure, absolutely. So I currently live in Eva Beach, Hawaii. I'm in the Navy for going on 20 years now. I'm actually retiring later this year. I'm also a real estate agent out here in Hawaii, a financial coach. I host a successful podcast on personal finances, and I also have a couple other businesses that I run as well, other side businesses, and that's pretty much me. My location and what I do.
Awesome! Wow, that's incredible! Congratulations on retirement. That's insane. Can I ask how old you are retiring?
I will be 38 next week.
Oh my gosh, this guy is just the goals. Oh my goodness. Well, it's incredible that you share all that, and hopefully everybody's already impressed. I know I am. And it should be pretty clear that this episode is all about financial independence and just personal finance. Most of the content that I consume is about personal finance, about financial independence. So this episode was kind of coming regardless, but I'm so excited to have you. And I think some people may not know what that term means. So I'd like to, go zoom way in and just say, what is financial independence and why should we care what it is?
Oh, hey, great question. I appreciate that, Travis. So financial independence is going to mean to you whatever it means to you, right? So I'll tell you what it means to me. Financial independence, the key word in there is independence. It means freedom, right? By being financially independent, by knowing what to do with your finances and getting yourself to a point where you're comfortable with your finances, you can live a life that is more free, right? You can be a little more carefree. You can enjoy a little bit more of, everything that you have in life. If you have a family, or even if you're single, like, living in Hawaii, I have my family here, but even if I was single, I'd be enjoying Hawaii too. Cause the beaches here, all the great activities that we have to enjoy here. And, I'm at the point now where retiring later this year, I get to make that choice. Do I, want to continue doing something and working, which I probably will, right? Because just because I'm reaching financial independence this year doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to fully retire, right? So that whole thing about the FIRE movement, I don't know if your listeners are familiar with that, but FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. I always kind of take the RE part off, and because I don't really like that R word. So yeah, I tell people I'm retiring later this year, but yeah, I'm retiring from the Navy and I'll be financially independent. But at the same time, I'm not really going to consider myself retired, right? Because I'll probably keep going until the wheels fall off, because I have my own mission. And that mission is to, educate other people on financial literacy so they can reach that same point of financial independence. And being financially independent gives me the freedom to do that. So I think that's the big key word here, Travis, and that's freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the key voices that I hear when I am consuming content around financial independence, personal finance, a lot of them don't like the retire early portion of it. So that's kind of funny that you brought it up too, because I think it is more about independence. It's more about freedom. It's more about creating some wiggle room, if you will, to make some key decisions. And so I think that you're spot on there. I'd like to kind of rewind a little bit and kind of get to your story of what was your journey in financial independence. I know you're getting to the tail end of it, being retiring early later this year. But where did we start? Where does this story begin?
Sure. So it dates way back to my childhood, right? So I'm originally from Long Island, New York, right? And so moving from one island to another out here in Hawaii, right? Although Long Island's a whole different entity, trust me.
Right.
But I grew up on Long Island, and I always I had an uncle, right, that invested in real estate. He also worked for the state of New York, and he said, yeah, he's like, when I retire from this state, I'm just gonna drive around between the first and the fifth and collect rent checks, and that's going to be my retirement. So I'm like, that's
Okay.
interesting. I said, okay, so why is that? And we kind of would talk about this all the time, and he would explain to me how real estate, he's able to buy these properties, have somebody else pay the mortgages while collecting like this cash flow that he was getting, and at the same time they're getting paid down and getting paid down, and the entire time he's working for this state, right? And that's what he's living off of with his family. And then when he retired, he's like, hey, I've got all these properties now that are paid off, that are paying me. And then if I ever need a large chunk of money, I just go sell one of them. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So that it kind
Yeah.
of put the bug in the back of my head a long time ago. So fast forward to, I was 17 years old when I joined the Navy, 18 when I actually shipped to boot camp. But I always had that bug in the back of my head. So when my wife and I got married, shortly after we moved in together, I started my recruiting tour in Charlottesville, Virginia. I was 21 years old. And I said, I want to buy a house. I was like, we need to buy a house if we're going to start a family. And then, eventually I want to buy more property, but let's start with our house, right? So we buy our primary residence. I had just turned 22 when we finally closed on this place. It was like my birthday present because, like, a week after I turned 22, we're moving into our brand new home, which was amazing. And then we said, okay,
Yeah.
cool. We're going to start a family now that we have our home. We're settled in. We've been married a couple of years. Let's start our family. So we were trying to do it, quote unquote, the right way, right? So we go through the whole process, and we have our first child, and then I get orders to go back to Norfolk, Virginia. Now, where we were at was about 3 hours away in Waynesboro, Virginia. That's where I did my recruiting tour.
Yeah.
And so now we had a decision to make. Okay, do I keep my family here by themselves? We didn't really know too many people in the area yet, or do they go back to New York with family while I go back to the ship and get ready to deploy? So
Right.
we chose the latter, moved my family back to New York, and I tried to sell the house. It was on the market for 9 months. It wasn't selling. So we decided to rent it out. Now, this was at a time where, okay, let me just add some clarification here. I bought the house in 2007. Okay, we all know what
Okay.
happened a couple years later, right? So with the
Right.
housing crash and everything, my house went from being valued at 260-ish thousand down to 157,000. And it stayed at
Wow.
157,000 for years. And I went up short selling it in 2012. So long story short with that is it kind of left a poor taste in my mouth with real estate, and we kind of backed off of the whole idea of investing in real estate. So we were like, okay, we got loaded with all this debt now, because at the same time we were paying a mortgage and paying the rent for the place. After my deployment, my wife and I, we moved into a place in Virginia Beach. So we're paying for this mortgage and we're paying rent at this apartment in Virginia Beach, and it
Okay.
just racked up all the credit card debt, right? So we had, I mean, an astronomical number of credit card debt, personal loans, and everything. So finally, we short sold the home, and as time's going on, I got commissioned in the Navy, so a little higher pay, which was nice, and we came up with a plan to start paying down our debt, right? And I knew I was deploying to Iraq here soon, so we said, okay, let's come up with this plan. And we really want to try to go to Hawaii after this. So let's try to get all of our debt paid down and save up some money so we can maybe buy a home again in Hawaii. right?
Yeah.
So we do that. We come up with this plan. We follow Dave Ramsey's baby steps, as a lot of people that are just starting off do, and we followed steps 1 through 3, and we paid off $28,000 in credit card debt, plus a couple personal loans, and we saved up $40,000 in a 2-year period. This is off of one income, right?
Holy
Because my,
moly.
my wife stayed home with the kids, right? And she homeschools and stuff. So, yeah, so we did that off of one income. We had to be very, very, very disciplined. It was not an easy thing to do. Um, but we did it, right? And we met our goal, and we moved out to Hawaii, and we said, hey, great, we're gonna buy a home in Hawaii because we want to have our own little slice of paradise. So, we go to buy the home out here in Hawaii, and the VA comes back and says, hey, you're not eligible for your VA loan because you short sold your last home. And if you want to get your VA loan back, you need to pay $67,000 that we guaranteed towards your old loan. And I said, oh, that's not good. So
Mm-mm.
we thought
No.
we thought it was over. Like that was it, because I didn't have a 20% down payment to put down on a house out here in Hawaii when the average cost at the time was like $750,000. So I said, okay,
Sure.
that's not going to happen. I said, you know what, let me try anyway. So I submitted my VA certificate of eligibility just to see what would happen. And they came back and said, yeah, we see this flag on your record, but at the same time, your previous lender never filed the paperwork on time. They filed it a day late. So you actually have your VA eligibility. So it was like a blessing in disguise. Don't even know, like somebody was looking out for us, right?
Oh yeah.
So we got our VA loan, and we were able to buy our home out here in Hawaii. So uh, just work with me here. I'm trying to speed through the whole backstory, right? So
You're doing
I
great.
started to get that itch again, right? The in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, man, I really want to invest in real estate. I really feel like there's something there. At the time, like we had paid off our debt, and we're like, what are we doing with our money? Like we were buying like some index funds and some real estate investment trusts and different things like that, like very safe bets. And I said, okay,
Yeah.
I really think it's time that we, start buying more properties and become landlords and really get this figured out. So, I started going to some real estate meetups, and we got linked up with some friends of mine that we were previously stationed with together. And they had a portfolio at the time of almost 30 units, right? So we're
Yeah.
sitting here chatting, and they're showing us their portfolio, and we're having lunch with them. And the whole time I'm trying to get my wife on board, because she's just remembering what happened when we had to short sell our home. And it's just that stink that you couldn't wash off. So we have lunch with them. They show us their portfolio. I show them some of the deals that I found and say, hey, am I running these numbers right? Does this look good? And they said, hey, yeah, like this is actually a really good deal. This one's okay, but this one's really good. And I'm talking to my wife, and I say, hey, look, this will work out this way. We'll make this much money per month. And that's with us being conservative with the numbers. What do you think? And
Right.
she's like, you know what? Let's do it. So we buy this duplex in Chesapeake, Virginia, and COVID hit, right? So the pandemic hit, and it was the end of the world. We closed February 5th, 2020, right?
Oh no.
Yeah. Had no idea what was coming the next month, right? So
Right.
boom, one of my tenants lose their job, can't pay the rent anymore. My downstairs tenant was Section 8, so I was getting that payment guaranteed, and it was actually enough to cover the mortgage and other miscellaneous expenses, to the point where we were basically cash flowing zero. I think I was paying $50 a month, I think, just to keep the property. So
Not terrible.
yes, but it is, but it isn't. So
Yeah.
as time went by, and of course, I couldn't evict the tenant, and I didn't want to either, because it was just a really bad time for everybody, and I just didn't want to
Right.
do that to somebody, especially being a brand new landlord. Like I'm not going to be the guy that puts this guy and his family out on the streets because a pandemic happened and the guy lost his job, right? So I said, what can I do to help him? And because I started searching at different ways to kind of help this guy out, I found a program that actually would pay his rent for him. So I got him linked up with them. They got everything filled out. They actually back paid all the rent that he owed, plus all the late fees. And at that time, by doing that, it made it so that my property cash flowed about $900 a month, uh, you know, with all that back payment. So it worked
Yeah.
out perfectly. Then I wound up listing the property, selling it, and making a profit on the sale as well. But also the entire year that I had it was profitable. I sold it for a profit, and then I took that money and I invested it into more of a passive investment in apartment buildings, right? So I found a team that goes out and buys apartments, and Basically, I provided some of the capital for that, and now I own a piece of that, and I get paid monthly. I said, "Oh, I really
Right.
like this," so I went and got two more. So now I have, 190 doors that I passively collect money on that I don't do a thing for. I get my monthly and quarterly distributions, and that's it. So that's
Is
kind
that a
of,
syndication?
yep. That's a real estate
Okay.
syndication. So by doing that, I was able to get my money into something else that was more passive, still involved in real estate, and I get to like not worry so much about that. I don't have to get the 2 o'clock in the morning phone call that the toilet seat exploded or whatever. So there's kind of like that peace of mind that I have as well. But the important part was is I found good partners, like good people that are doing really good work that I could trust because I was giving them large sums of money, so I had to make sure that these were people I could trust. And so far it's
Right.
been working out really well. And I want to continue buying more of that as I retire from the Navy. But because I was proactive and did this, between my retirement from the Navy and my assets that I'm investing in right now and the passive cash flow that I have and from my business, I'll have enough money to cover all my expenses. So now, working as a realtor post Navy, right? I don't have to be the guy that's chasing a commission, right? And hounding people. It's like, hey, I'll help you out. I could be the best possible realtor I can to you because I can dedicate this time to you. I don't have to sit here and try to like, really push on you too hard. Like, hey, I'm going to work with you, not, you know, other ways. Like,
Right.
some other people could be pushy, right? I don't have to be that way. So,
Right.
but yeah, that's
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 awesome.
kind of like, the long story. But
No, that
yeah, that's my story on real estate.
that's incredible. Incredible. And there's so much to learn from this story. I'm just sitting here listening, and I'm like, I've got questions about that. That's amazing. And so there's so many good examples of what to do. And so, kind of just going back to the idea of financial independence, I'm thinking, why should people strive for this? I think that your story in itself is a great answer to why people should strive after financial independence. But and I know answer will be different for everybody. But at the very core, why should people care and strive after this thing that not enough people are talking about?
Well, Travis, that's a great point because not enough people really are talking about financial independence. Sure, you'll hear podcasts out there, and there's some people that there's YouTube videos and everything, but if you're not going out there and searching for the stuff, you're not going to see it, right? So that's one
Right.
of the reasons why I try to go out and I try to push this message. I try to go to different meetups. I try to make sure that I'm putting myself out there on social media and everywhere else to kind of push this message of financial literacy because I think that's the biggest piece of it to get to that point of financial independence, right? So I think and that's one of the things I do as a financial coach as well, is I try to help educate people to the point where they can make those decisions on their own to go out and purchase cash flowing assets and different things like that, learn how to pay off their debt properly, right? Because there's some debt that's good. I have a ton of debt right now, and it's all debt that I leverage into other real estate assets, right? And
Right.
it's stuff that's advantageous when it comes to taxes. So these are the different things that people need to learn, right? When it comes to building up their financial literacy and then getting themselves to a point where they could be financially independent. And again, like I said before, the important part about this is, it's going to give you that freedom, that time freedom, right? So you don't have to sit here and constantly focus on, your W-2 or, if I'm late to work today, am I going to get fired? Or, all those different stressors that people normally have, you can alleviate yourself of that. And it doesn't even have to be anything crazy. You can start by just putting a little bit of money into a, real estate investment trust or index funds or different things like that, just to get started, get the feel for it, right? And then when you get a little bit more comfortable, maybe start taking some of that money, get a little more serious, and go buy some real estate, and there, again, there's so many different things. You could listen to all these different podcasts. You can listen to or go watch all these other different YouTube videos and figure out what strategy you want to focus on, but pick something and go with it. Start a side hustle, right? Just because you work a W-2 job doesn't mean you can't start something on the side. Open an
Right.
Etsy store, create digital printouts or different things like that. I mean, there's so many different things you can do to create like another small income, and then take that small income and 100% invest it. Don't do anything else with it. Don't be like, oh, cool, I made an extra, $500 this month. I'm going to go out and buy the new Jordans that just came out. No, take that $500 and go invest it into something that will pay you, right?
Oh
The
yeah.
whole point of this is make your money work for you. Employ your dollars. And there's a lot of great books that you can read that will help you with that, like The Richest Man in Babylon and Rich Dad Poor Dad. I mean, those are some fantastic foundational books to start with.
Oh yeah.
Just to put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're exactly right in mentioning it a few times in a few different ways of consuming content. Consuming content about this is a really good first step toward financial independence because you're going to learn things that you really don't know much about. I mean, people don't know about financial independence in itself. And so that if you don't know about it, you're not going to know how to achieve it. And so
Yeah.
consuming content is a huge thing. And I'm interested, you've mentioned a few different ways to do this, but I'm interested in your answer in what do you think the key pillars are to achieve financial independence? I know there's a few different voices out in the community in saying what the pillars are, but I'm interested in what your pillars are.
Sure. Travis, that's a great question. And I would say that, the first thing, the first pillar is going to be education. You have to educate
Yes.
yourself. And I like what you're talking about with, consuming content, because I tell other people, I'm a content sponge. I go out there and I just soak up whatever I can, and then I'll squeeze and I'll get rid of what I don't need to hold on to. Right. But the thing is,
Yes.
you go out there and absorb as much as you can, take what you need, discard the rest, and just keep moving. So education is going to be the first piece. The second piece I would say is find a mentor or a coach or somebody that's just going to help guide you, right? And not even so much guide you, but help motivate you, right? Because a lot of times, getting that pat on the back means more than than any type of monetary reward that somebody will get, right? If somebody tells you, hey, you're doing a great job with this, like let's keep exploring, let's keep moving forward. That can mean more to somebody than anything else, right? So education, get a mentor. Then the next piece is discipline. Okay. Because
Yes.
you cannot be financially independent without discipline. And I say discipline, but I kind of mean it loosely, right? There's certain things that you just need to, discard in your life. There's certain things or behaviors you need to get rid of. But I'll tell you, a funny story about somebody that I interviewed on my podcast, and we were discussing the difference between somebody who's a spender and a saver, right? And it's funny because I found that, myself, I'm a spender. And even though I run average Joe finances and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm good about saving and investing and all this stuff. No, I'm a spender, and my wife is actually a saver. So she was actually the one that was always like kind of trying to like rope me in. So for me, it was a mindset shift, and I had to shift how I looked at how I was spending my money. So I said, I'm still going to spend my money, but I'm going to spend it on other things that are going to make me more money. I'm going to spend it on cash flowing assets. So I still got that gratification of buying something, but at the same time, I was buying something that was beneficial to us financially, right? So instead of going out
Right.
and buying that materialistic thing that I need, and I still every now and then do, I'll go out and I'll splurge on something, and I'll have to smack my hand and say, "Hey, calm down, don't overdo it," right? And
Right.
that's okay, because you don't want to turn yourself into a drone. You don't want to just become like this mindless. Okay, I've got my budget here, and I can do this, and I can do that, and but I can't do this. So you don't want to do that. So give yourself a little grace, give yourself a little leeway, right? And what I always tell people, when you build your budget and spending plan, have a little bit money put to the side to do fun things. Like I call it fun money, right? And this is
Right.
money that we put to the side to go out to eat, to maybe go out and buy something nice, just different things like that. And there was a certain amount of money that we had per month to do it. And if we didn't spend it all, we would carry it over to the next month and we'd let it build up, and maybe we'd do something big when it builds up high enough, right? A lot of other people say, oh, if you don't spend it, then just dump it into your debt. But, I was like, I can do that. But at the same time, it also gives us a goal to strive for. Like we want to save up to go on vacation. We're going to save up to go on vacation with this fun
Right.
money, right? And that's another part of the discipline piece, right? So education, get a mentor, discipline. And then the final one is action. You have to take action. Okay.
Go off.
Because you could
Yes.
sit here and talk about this all day. I could sit here and talk to you about this stuff all day. And for the longest time, my wife and I were sitting here talking about this stuff all the time. And we were absorbing content. We were learning all this stuff. But you know what we weren't doing? we weren't taking action. So our debt just kept racking up and racking up. When we
Mm-hmm.
sat down and decided to say, okay, it's time to move forward and take these next steps, and we took action, that's when we saw the real progress. And we really saw our goal for what it was. And when we started moving towards it, it just made it that much more real. And
Right.
and part of this action piece is celebration, right? Each time you pay something off, celebrate that. Take some of that fun money that you have. If you paid off a credit card, go out to dinner, celebrate that night. Don't pay for it with that credit card that you just paid off, but
Right.
use some of that fun money that you have out and go out and enjoy a nice dinner and celebrate. Live in the moment. Don't, like I said, you don't want to be a mindless drone. You want to still enjoy your life while you're doing this. So give yourself a little bit of grace, give yourself a little bit of leeway, and just go out and live.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's a great couple of suggestions, great pillars to go off of when people are discovering this for the first time and starting to consume that content and being that sponge. There's a lot of different steps. There's a lot of different voices saying you need to do this, this, this. People say you need a budget. People say you need to pay off debt. People say you need to invest. Where do you think people should really start? They're learning what this phrase means for the very first time. Do they sit down and budget? Do they start investing? Do they start where do you think people that are very new at this, where should they begin?
So Travis, that's great. That's a great point, great question. And the starting point is going to be different for many different people, right? So it just depends on where you're at in life and what your goals are. But one of
Sure.
the best ways to start is to go on Google and just start pulling up content. Okay. Start pulling up, hey, how do I pay off my credit cards quickly? How do I do this? How do just look up these different things? But there are different tactics and different ways that you can do things that are more effective than others. And I'll tell you what I did. Okay. When my wife and I
Yeah.
decided that we were going to do this, again, we followed Dave Ramsey's baby steps, but we did the whole snowball thing and we basically turned it into an avalanche, right? So what we started doing is we started paying off all of our credit cards, the highest interest rate first, started paying all the stuff off, and then, paying the minimum payments on everything else, but dumping huge chunks of money into the target, right? Whatever our target was. And once we paid that off, we continued paying minimum payments on everything else. And then we chose the next target, right? And then that next target, we took all that money that we were putting into the last one and dumped it into that, as well as whatever the minimum payment would have been. So you start to see this, like this huge snowball just grow and grow and grow and grow until it turns into this giant avalanche that's just coming down, right? So we did it that
Right.
way. The other thing we did that was very helpful is we did the envelope method, right? So we said, okay, we have, these different envelopes for different things that that we're going to have money for. So we knew, we had pets, so we wanted to have some type of vet money, right? We wanted to have money that was, for the family to go out and do different things. Because again, like I said, you have to have that a little bit of fun money, right? So and we had separate money for that too. That was fun money. So we had family
Right.
outings and then we had fun money, right? And then we had our savings. So besides just paying down our debt, we were also saving money as well. So yes, we were putting large chunks of money, but we weren't just dumping everything into that debt. We wanted to save money as well because in case something happened and there was an emergency, we wanted to have that emergency fund, right? So this is
Right.
just the way we did it. We eventually grew that into something called sinking funds, where it was
Mm-hmm.
basically the envelope system, but with bank accounts. We opened several bank accounts, all with the same bank. And every time I got paid, we would take the money and distribute it to these different accounts for those specific reasons. So that was just another strategy that we found online, right? So I started talking about this stuff on my blog as we were sharing our journey with what we're doing. Then my buddy told me, hey, you should start a podcast. You like to talk, right? Why don't you
Yes.
talk about this on your podcast? Maybe interview other people and ask them what they're doing on their journey. So I said, what, that's a great idea. So I started the podcast and I started interviewing people. And again, I'm learning from them. And this is one of the things that I get that's for me, a selfish thing as a podcaster. You probably realize this as well, is you get to
Yeah.
bring people on, pick their brain, ask them the questions you want to ask them, right? And learn those things. So I said, hey,
Right.
I'm going to start bringing these people on and learning from them. And I started bringing on these real estate investors. I started bringing on these people that invest in the stock market and all this stuff and just asking them the questions that I want to ask them and learning. And at the same time, being able to share this content with other people and they get to learn as well. So
Right.
again, long answer to your question, but to long story short, go on the internet, search how to do it. There's so many different ways. But the other thing you could do too is maybe go out and find a financial coach, right? And it doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to be anyone else that I know, but there's several good ones out there, right? And get somebody that's going to help mentor you and motivate you, right? That's part of the those pillars we were talking about before. Education, and the next thing was mentorship, right? So get somebody
Right.
that's going to help motivate you and help push you in the right direction. Because one of the things that I focus on, especially as a coach, isn't so much the, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do. No, I don't tell anybody what to do. I say, hey, here's different strategies you can utilize and different things you can do. You can make the decision. Let me know which way you want to go, and we'll kind of like reevaluate where your stuff's going based off the decisions that you make, right? And it's all about
Right.
building that relationship between you, the client, and money. You have to have a relationship with money. That's the other big piece. So yeah.
Right, right. Absolutely. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, I would say, a fundamental action that you have to take in your effort of financial independence, as at some point in some fashion, you have to invest. You have to invest your money. You have to put your dollars to work. Every dollar has to have a job. There's a lot of voices that say that. And so I'm interested, it being such a fundamental step, a fundamental action in this journey, why are people so scared of it?
So, I'll tell you, probably the biggest reason why, Travis, is the media, right? And
Yeah,
I don't like knocking on the media or anything like that, but it's true. Like, the stuff that sells is the stuff that's scary, right?
right.
Oh my God, the stock market's crashing. Oh, the real estate market's going to crash, and this and that. Yes, that can put a little fear into somebody, but when you're sitting there in your comfort zone and you got yourself out of debt and now you're saving up all this cash and you're in that comfort zone, but what you don't realize is as you're putting your money into these savings accounts and it's just sitting there, you're losing money. And you know why you're losing money? Because inflation. You know what the inflation was last year? It was about 8.5% that we know of, right? But when you look at the
Right.
cost of certain things in like the grocery store, you see some things went up 50%, some other things went up 20, 30%, right? So a lot larger than that 8.5% that's advertised, right? I mean, look at gas prices right now. So it's just these are the kind of things that you need to think about. That when your money's sitting in the savings account, what kind of interest rate is it getting? Like a
Mm-hmm.
0.05%? You're not making squat. You'll have $10,000 sitting in the bank, and for the year, you made 2 cents. How is that
Right.
okay? How is that okay? It's not, right? So, and that means that entire time. So if you were getting 0.05% and inflation was 8.5%, you lost 8.45% of your cash that year because the value of your dollars that are sitting in that bank account went down. Okay.
Right.
So the thing is, yes, there is a lot of fear out there, but at the same time, if you're sitting there in your comfort zone inside that box and you don't step outside of the box, you don't step outside of that comfort zone, you're never going to accelerate. You're gonna live in fear and debt for the rest of your life, and maybe not debt, because if you're saving up your money, that's great, and you're not like racking up that debt. But eventually, you're gonna run out of that money that you saved up. You're not gonna be able to retire because this
Mm-hmm.
money's sitting in the account and you're losing money every single year. So you have to understand, and part of this again is the education piece. Learn what compound interest is and why it's called the eighth wonder of the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Because compound interest, the money that you make makes more money. And then that money that made more money makes more money, then makes more money because it's compounding on top of itself. So if you put
Right.
$100,000, into an account and it makes 8%, right? You now that over the year, you now have $108,000. Now that next year you have $108,000 at that 8% rate, right? So as it keeps going, that now it's compounding on top of itself, right? So understand what compound interest is and get over your fear. Okay.
Right.
If you want to like really look into it, and you're saying, oh, well, but look at what just happened to the stock market. It dropped 30%. Totally get that. But look at the chart of the history of the stock market. Look how it goes up and then it's got this drop and then it goes up and it's got this drop and it goes up and it goes this. But which way has it trended the entire time? It's always going up, even with those
Up.
dips, little dips, big dips. It doesn't matter. It goes up. So even if you want to be safe about it, historically, if you just put your money into some index funds, you'll probably sit comfortable between 8 and 12%, lifetime gains, maybe even higher at some point, right? But there's going to be those drops. Now's not a good time to cash out your retirement. Okay. Now's
No.
not a good time. You might want to just hold off a little bit longer as it recovers, right? Because we did have this huge drop. But again, that's everybody else's decision. Now, me personally, I like to invest in real estate because it's a real asset. People will always need a place to live. And, the stuff that we're seeing right now is not the same as what happened in 2008. I don't see this huge crash coming, right? It may be a small correction, and it all depends on the market itself. That's what I like about real estate. There's so many different sub markets, right? And it all depends on the area. Like the real
Right.
estate out here in Hawaii is not going to be the same as the real estate in Colorado or North Dakota, or even, North Carolina and things like that, right? It's going to be different in every specific market, right? Big cities, rural areas, suburban areas. So it just depends on, where you're investing your money at, and you have to do the research on the market that you're going to invest in. You can't just say, "Oh, hey, I found this great deal. I'm going to go buy it," because what seems like a great deal to you based on the market that you live in might not be a great deal for that specific market. You might say, "Oh, hey, the properties in this neighborhood are really appreciating well. If I buy it in a couple of years, it'll be worth, so much more." Well, you don't know if that market is plateauing right now and it's just going to stay still, or it might even drop a little bit, right? So one
Right.
of the safest bets to do if you're going to invest in real estate is buy something that's going to cash flow no matter what.
Hmm.
Even with the interest rates being up, if you buy an asset that cash flows, you're going to be safe, because even if the value drops down, you're still collecting that rent, and it's still enough to pay off that mortgage and generate a cash flow for you. So right now, that's probably the safest thing to go with, is to find assets that are generating cash flow. And it doesn't even have to just be real estate. Like you can buy a business, there's different things that you can buy.
Right.
But again, like I always lean towards real estate because me personally, that's what I like to invest in the most.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Right.
I kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah, back over to you,
That's
Travis.
No, that's perfect. We're learning so much, and kind of leaning. You mentioned earlier, as a podcaster, you get to ask questions that you actually want to be answered. So I'm gonna ask my own, and go on this route of how important is community in this journey, because I'm learning as I'm trying to start my real estate investment journey. My wife and I'm finding that my community that I have is very risk averse, and having a community that is very risk averse, and then you start talking about investing in real estate, you don't get the support that you need in starting this journey. And so I'm interested in kind of what your thoughts on community are, and this journey that you're starting, that doesn't seem, the people around you, because they don't know it exists, they don't understand it, they don't get your desire. And so I'm interested in kind of your thought process and community in this journey.
Find a new community, Travis. No, I'm kidding. So, okay, that's fantastic, and I really appreciate this question because community is huge. And when I say community, I'm talking about networking, right? So,
Yeah.
people in the real estate investing space, one of the biggest things that we do is we network with each other. We have meetups, right? You have these RIAs, these real estate investment meetups, right? And we get together and we collaborate, we trade ideas. Deals get made at these meetups. It's really quite amazing. And also conferences. There's so many different things you get to do. I actually got to speak at the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference in Phoenix, and that was such an amazing experience. And I had so many people come up to me after my talk and just say, "Hey, I'd like to network with you and kind of just keep in touch and check out what you're doing." And I'm like, "Hey, this is awesome. This is great." And that's kind of the whole point of doing things like that, and going out and going to these events and meeting people and putting yourself out there. Now, there's a lot of people that might say, "Oh, well, I'm an introvert. I can't really go out there and just talk to people. It's not like, I'm not comfortable." And that's fine. Go to the meetups. Just don't sit in the corner, having a drink or whatever in the corner, and just sit there and mope around. Just kind of go and maybe ear hustle a little bit, see what some people are talking about, and eventually maybe you'll build up that courage to go out and talk to somebody. But you can go to these meetups and you can learn, you can hear what other people are doing, because there will be people there speaking, there will be guest speakers, there's going to be different times where you get to sit down at a table with other people, and maybe you can start asking them questions about the things that you're interested in, similar to what I was talking about with podcasts, right? So you can go to these meetups and you can start asking the questions and picking people's brain. And I'll tell you that 97% of the people that I've met in this community have been just absolutely amazing people. I would say maybe
Right.
3% are scumbags, right? You'll see that in any community, right? But
Right.
97% are just genuine, authentic, good people trying to make a difference, right? There's so many real estate investors that I've met that are actually trying to, build affordable housing. There's this one group that I know that builds tiny homes for vets, and it's free for them. It's free for the veterans to go live there, and they have like it's a nonprofit, and they get sponsored by other people to do this. And you know why they were able to do that, Travis? Because they built up this financial independence for themselves, this freedom that they had time to go and take on their passion projects, right? That's the
Right.
other beautiful part about this. So by investing in real estate, by building up this passive income and being able to make yourself financial independent, you can start doing some more of the things that you're passionate about and making a difference in the world. So it can also be altruistic as well, right? It doesn't just have to be
Yeah.
about making money. It could also be about you making a difference in your community and in the world. So I would say that that's one of the biggest things to take away from that is network, build relationships, and make a difference.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I like that. And I think another kind of thing that goes hand in hand with community is limiting beliefs, right? People think, "Oh, I can't do this because I've got massive student loan debt. I can't do this because I've got kids." I just had twins, so I'm thinking about this as well. So
Congratulations.
I'm Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm interested, people have these limiting beliefs. I know them to be untrue, but how should people approach, thinking that they can't do it?
That's a great question, Travis. So I'll tell you, limiting beliefs is probably the bane of any investor's existence, right? Because we all have them, right? But it's again, it's about that stepping outside of the comfort zone, right? To understand that you can overcome these limiting beliefs. And I'll tell you one thing. I had limiting beliefs about buying more property in Hawaii because I said it's just too expensive here. Like I wanted to start like working on some flips and different things like that. And then one day I went to a meetup and a guy came out there and he was talking about flips that he does. And I'm like, oh, he's got to do that. He's doing this stuff out of state, whatever. And then he starts spitting out these locations, all these different spots in Hawaii that he's flipping properties. And I'm like, wait, what? I was like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you like being able to flip these properties in Hawaii? Said, do you know how expensive it is here? And he's like, yeah, he's like, I've got really good hard money lenders and this and that. And he's talking to me about all these people that he uses. And he got this way by building relationships and networking with people that he was able to find the right people to bring onto his team to say, hey, I now have hard money lenders that will give me the cash. If the deal looks good, they will give me the cash. And then I can go make this flip happen. And then when it flips, I pay them all back. I take my profit and we're good. And I'm like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, this guy's actually doing this stuff out here in Hawaii. I was like, I had some serious limiting beliefs about this, you know?
Right.
And that's when I realized, I too suffer from that. And everybody does. Everybody has limiting beliefs, no matter, what community you're in, you're going to have limiting beliefs on something. And it's about overcoming them. And again, like I said, stepping outside of that comfort zone. And that's the only way you're going to overcome limiting beliefs. But there's so many people out there that, like you said, hey, I've got $100,000 in student loan debt, or I don't think I can overcome all the credit card debt and personal loans that I have. And I'm telling you right now, you can. I did it. I paid off a whole bunch of credit cards and personal loans. I'm talking about like tens of thousands of dollars, and still managed to save up $40,000 on one income in a 2-year period. Okay,
Right.
I did that, and it was with discipline. And I've interviewed people on my podcast. There was one recently, not too long ago. That episode hasn't even aired yet, where I interviewed this one gentleman and his wife, where they had $120,000 in student loan debt,
Wow.
$120,000, and they never paid it off with cash. They did a whole different strategy. And this was kind of mind blowing, but they bought a permanent life insurance policy. They started putting all their money into that, and then they borrowed from the policy to pay off their student loans, but all the money that was in the policy was also gaining interest the entire
Right.
time. So I was like, wow, that was just mind blowing. I was like, you didn't even pay off your student loans. You just did it this entirely different way, a way that I would have never thought of doing it myself. So that again was something that I thought was a little mind blowing. And again, shattering those limiting beliefs. So there are ways you have to go out and attack and shatter and destroy those limiting beliefs, and anybody can do it.
Wow, that was a very creative way to pay off student loans. That's incredible. And so I'm interested. I want to kind of jump back to something that you said earlier, which was talking about inflation. We are sitting on more cash than we're used to because of a home sale, and a big reason that I'm getting more motivated to invest in real estate is because we're sitting on entirely too much cash for what the individual should have. And my concern is, we're losing money, every day based on how much cash that we're sitting on. And so I'm interested in, why should people be so concerned about the inflation rate last year, this year? Why should we be so concerned about all of this?
Well, that's again, Travis, that's a great question. And the thing that's concerning about, the inflation and just in general, just with the way that we're going and just the value of the dollar and how everything is shifting, the big concerning point is the cash that you have today is worth less tomorrow. And
Right.
one of the things that I like about my property that I have right now, my primary residence, is that I have this mortgage on it at a 2.5% interest rate that I borrowed at yesterday's dollars. So it is worth that much more to me. I'm paying 2.5% interest when the interest rate is 8.5%. I'm making 6% a year because I'm still paying the mortgage payment on what yesterday's value was, right? Where my dollars might be worth less now, but I have more dollars because of inflation and everything else like that. So your pay goes up and everything else. What as the government tries to keep up with it, and your employers, they're raising wages, right? They're raising salary to try to keep up and hedge against inflation. But the best hedge against inflation is going to be you investing your money. And I'll tell you right now, one of the good things to kind of figure out where inflation really is go look at I bonds right now. I bonds, I think, are at nine point something percent. Like it's up there, like 9.7
Right.
or something like that. But with I bonds being that high, and you have money sitting in a savings account, you're better off just dumping all that money to I bonds right now. It's guaranteed. You can't touch it for a year, but that's a guaranteed 9% per year, right? And versus that 0.5% of your money sitting in a savings account, right? So that's a good
Right.
idea to kind of figure out like where we're at with inflation. Like I said before, the biggest part is when your money is sitting, you're losing it. You're losing it the entire time. So employ those dollars to make you more dollars, and then use those dollars to go buy the things that you want, right? If you want to go buy a new car and it's going to cost you $500 a month, take that money and go buy an asset that's going to pay you $500 a month to go get the new car. But honestly, once you've shifted your mindset and you start thinking like that, you're going to be like, well, I want to take that extra $500 a month that I'm, making and invest that in something else. And then you just start this whole, it's like a reverse snowball of the debt,
Right.
right? Because now you're starting a snowball of making more money. So you have to be careful with interest, and you have to be careful with inflation, right? You have to pay attention that look at the cost of everything that's going on. And as things change, as gas prices go up, as a gallon of milk goes up, all these different things are just getting astronomical at this point. Realize how much you're spending. Like $100 used to buy you, a full bag of groceries or even like a bag and a half. And now it gets you half a
Right.
bag of groceries. It's insane. So if you're paying attention to the numbers, you're watching where inflation's going, and you're actively hedging against it by investing in something that's beating inflation, then you're putting yourself at a better financial point for the future. But if you're not doing anything, you're losing all this money over the years. I mean, I think they say $100, just a couple years ago, I think back in 2015, is
Yeah.
worth like $76 today. That's
Oh my gosh.
crazy. That is
Right.
crazy. So that's just something to think about. Yesterday's dollars are worth more. So sometimes debt can be your friend as well. Not credit card debt, not like crazy credit card debt, but like mortgages and things like that. If you get a low enough interest rate, I mean, that's a great way to also hedge against inflation as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So That was a fantastic answer, and so I kind of want to go into investments just in general because there's so many different ways to invest, right? Investing in the stock market, investing in real estate, even investing in real estate. There's different ways to do it, and so I kind of wanted to just dive into kind of different ways that people invest. I know there's like short term investments in real estate. There's residential. I'm interested in kind of the different ways that you see people investing out in the world today.
Sure. And that's one of the great things that, on my podcast that I bring people on, I get to see all these different aspects of what they're doing in their own journey. And it's really quite amazing. So a lot of times I see some of these short-term guys that are like they're loaning their money out. They're being private lenders, right? And they're giving their money to different people that are flipping or wholesaling, just doing these different things, right? Where they're collecting like 12% interest over a 3, 4, 5, 6 month period, right? And it doesn't seem like much when they get their money back and then the interest that they're owed. But at the same time, that's, they just got a 12% return, even though it was over
Right.
6 months. It's more, like if they didn't reinvest that money anywhere else, it would really turn into about 6% for the year, but they just keep redeploying that money. They get paid back and then they redeploy it with another person that needs help. Right. So private lending is another great way to especially get like a larger return on investment. But again, it's a little more risky because if
Right.
you lend the money to somebody and they don't know what they're doing or the deal flops, you're going to be hurting too, because now they can't pay you back and now your money's gone. So the people that I know that do that, they have strict criteria of who they lend their money to, right? They want to see what the deal looks like. What do the numbers look like? Show me. And they have a background in real estate to understand, whether or not it's a good deal. Because if it's not a good deal, they're not going to lend you the money because it's too
Right.
much of a risk. So that's one way. That's more of a short-term thing. Another thing I see too is people doing like a lot of short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And short-term rentals is a great way to get some serious cash flow in real estate where if you buy a rental property and you look at the numbers and like the month to month rent, like you're just breaking even or you're not going to make enough to cover all of your expenses. If it's in an area where short-term rentals are popular, you can actually make more cash flow using it as a short-term rental. And there's
Right.
different ways that you can calculate that, right? But that's just another way. It's like another out. You want to have several different outs. And when it comes to buying property. So I know people that will strictly only look in areas where it's like, okay, if I can't make the cash flow monthly, can I make this a short-term rental? If I can make it a short-term rental, it's going to work, then I'll buy the property. But if I can't turn it into a short-term rental, I won't buy the property, right? So there's that way of doing it as well. So you have
Right.
private lending, you have short-term rentals, you have buy and hold, where you buy a property and you have somebody that's renting it out from you and they're paying your mortgage, and at the same time you're getting some cash in your pocket as well from the cash flow. Um, there's some people that buy in certain areas just to get appreciation. It's another buy and hold strategy. Like a lot of people in Hawaii do that. They'll buy property
Right.
out here and just hold on to it because the value goes up 3 to 5% every year, generally. But the past 2 or 3 years, it's been going up about 15 to 20% a year, which is absolutely insane. Um,
Right.
so there's those different methods as well. Now, a buy and hold method can be very difficult if you're in a market like Hawaii and you're not going to generate enough cash flow to pay that mortgage. So it has to be something that you're comfortable with eating that cost. But
Right.
if you do and you can hold on to the property for a couple of years, the reward at the end is a nice six-figure paycheck when you go and sell that property. So there's different things, and again, it depends on your comfort level, depends on how much money you have in reserves, like cash in reserves, and it depends on where you're at in your own investing journey. Like me personally, I'm not going to go out and buy more properties, excuse me, in Hawaii, just to hold on to them, that I know I could sell in a couple of years and get that nice chunk of change, because I'm not at the point where I'm comfortable having to pay this extra cost. Like I'm at the point right now where I'm reaching financial independence and I want to kind of be a little more safe with what I'm doing, but still building up my cash flow and building up my assets in my portfolio. Right. So it just
Right.
depends on where you're at in your journey. So that's just a couple different ways in real estate. Another thing that you can do, and this is one that I personally like myself, is
Yeah.
getting into multifamily real estate, right? So real
Mm-hmm.
estate syndications, and how those work. And I'll kind of be brief about it, but you have two sets of people, right? You have your general partners and you have your limited partners. Your general partners are going to be the ones that go out and find the deal, underwrite the deal, fund the deal, right? So they're going to be the ones going out to the lender, getting the loan, and then they raise capital to put that down payment on the property. And then they raise capital for any type of renovations or anything they're going to do to make it a value add property, right? So, and they get that from the limited partners. The limited partners
Right.
come in and say, hey, here's the cash to put into this for the down payment, for the renovations and everything that you're going to do. And hey, we expect, a return on this. And the general partners say, okay, cool. Based off the cash flow of what we're getting, based off of how much we can raise the rents, here's what year one's going to look like, year two, year three, year four, year five, right? This is what it's going to look like as we, renovate these units, raise the rent and everything else, and what your cash flow is going to look like. And you could say, okay, hey, cool, this looks good. And if you understand what the underwriting looks like, you can get yourself more comfortable and you give them your money, right? And this is what I
Right.
do right now as a limited partner. So I found some partners that I trust, right? Two different groups that I invest with right now. And I like the way they do their underwriting. They're very conservative. And this is for both groups. And so I decided I was going to give them my money. And now I sit here and I collect this passive income as a limited
Right.
partner. Here's the thing: you don't get to make decisions, right? You get a monthly or quarterly brief saying, hey, here's where we're at, here's where we're headed, here's the rents collected, here's the numbers that we're working with, here's our budget for this, right? So you get to look at all those numbers and then you collect your check, right? So I'm comfortable with that. I like it right now. It's a pretty safe bet in real estate, as
Right.
long as the numbers look good. Some of the multifamily units are starting to look a little crazy right now, and there's still people buying them, which is, hey, that's up to them. But you have to be comfortable with where you're at, right? And
Right.
by doing it this way, like I said, I get this passive income. I don't have to worry about anything, and I just get paid. So that's my favorite real estate strategy right now. But there's so many other ways, man. I mean, you can invest in self storage. I know people that
Right.
invest in mobile homes and RV parks and different things like that. It just depends on which route you want to go, how active you want to be, or how
Right.
passive you want to be. So I'm at a point right now where I'm doing this stuff passively because I have so much other things going on right now with being active duty in the Navy still, with being a full-time realtor now. I'm now transitioning to being a full-time realtor. Um, Also running my podcast and my other two businesses. So it's kind of crazy, but it's a way that I can keep investing in real estate. But now as I retire, I'm looking to go a little more active myself. So again, another
Right.
long ramble answer to your question. It's what I do. But yeah,
Yeah.
because I want to show there's so many different ways, right? And there's
Right.
so many more that I haven't even named, but there's so many different ways that you can invest in real estate. And that's what I like about it too, is just how diverse you can be in this space, to generate cash flow and generate wealth for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that I follow in the financial independence community that are investing in real estate and live in Hawaii. So there's some correlation that's happening there. So that's awesome. Well, we're running out of time, so I'm interested. Is there anything that we missed? Something that we should be thinking about?
Oh, Travis, there's always something to be thinking about, right?
Well,
And that's
sure.
and that's what, one of the reasons why I do my podcast the way I do it is I bring on, all the people from different pieces, or like different aspects of like the financial independence movement, right? Whether they invest in real estate, stock market. I brought on people that talk about crypto and NFTs. You can go into all this stuff, right? I'm not so comfortable in the crypto and NFT realm, and you can even see why right now, right? Because
Right.
it's still kind of correlating with the stock market, right? You see the stock market crash and crypto crashed at the same time, so it's like it's to me it feels like it's one and the same. Um,
Right.
but I got to learn about that stuff, right? And again, I think the biggest thing, because there is so much more that we can talk about, but the biggest thing, and you had mentioned it earlier, is go out and absorb that content. And like I said
Yes.
before, I'm a content sponge. So I go out there and just constantly learn and learn and learn. The people who I follow on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all that stuff are pretty much all personal finance or real estate or investing content creators, because that's the information that when I go and open up that app that I want to look at. I mean, every now and then I'll see the cat that cooks and stuff, which is pretty cool and it's funny, it's good to laugh at, but I'll probably just swipe right past that real quick to get on to the next thing of something that's going to motivate me to keep going on the journey that I'm going on, and just and find that that thing that motivates you, that pushes you to just keep it going. Because again, like you said, there's so many different things out there, but find the niche that works for you and just attack it 100% head on.
Right, right. Oh my gosh, so good. Well, time really just flew by. Oh my gosh. So,
Well, I rambled a lot too, so
you rambled with some great content.
I
Oh my
appreciate that.
goodness. Yeah, exactly. So, where can people go and learn more and follow you?
So actually, I just made a new website to make it easier for everybody. So it's my name. It's mikecavaggioni.com. And you can find all my links there. Or if you just want to just go straight to my links, just go to averagejoefinances.com/links. But you could find everything there. You can find my podcast, all my social media. Definitely check it out. Feel free to follow me and see what I'm doing. Connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a powerhouse, a great place to network. Connect with me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group too, where we talk about this stuff. Join the group, join the discussions, and just enjoy what we're doing out there. Because I enjoy sharing it, and I'm hoping that the people that are absorbing that content are enjoying it as well. So, but Travis, I really appreciate it, man. You give me the opportunity to come here and speak to your listeners.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You got to go and consume all of this content. It's very, very good. Also, make sure that you're going and following the podcast here at How to Adult TW on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are going to continue to learn how to adult together.